Hey, Stranger Things, don't you like Stranger Things? I like Stranger Things, well, I did until they decided to make their human antagonist Sunday cartoon villains and make Hopper a goofy asshole.
You want to see real crazy?
Stranger Things, don't you love Stranger Things? Well, I did, but now the title sounds so fucking strange to me because I've said it so many fucking times. Stranger Things sounds like hashtag just girly things trying to spread the word on stranger danger. When he takes my kids and throws them into a rusty ass fan, hashtag Stranger Things. Right, now we've got all that silliness over and done with, two things before we start. Firstly, I love this show. So before you start raw dogging that dislike button, remember this comes from a place of love in this dried up, cynical husk of a human being.
I love you too.
Secondly, yes, I'm not the only one to make a video criticising Season 3. However, I've got a lot to say that they haven't said, so fuck it, I'm making this video anyway. So, Stranger Things is one of, if not the most popular ongoing series at the moment. You know you're doing well when your 50-second trailer amasses 13 million views in 2 months. Season 1 came out just around the perfect time, slap bang in the middle of the 1980s nostalgia boom, and it was just so fucking good. I've seen people say that this is essentially a perfect season of TV, and while there are a few things I can nitpick about,
You were here for the money! No! The money!
It's such a tight and well done season that I think I'm starting to agree with them. And then Season 2 came out. I liked Season 2. Actually, I'm one of the select weird fuckers who actually preferred this season to the first. I'm not saying it's better, because it's not. I just prefer it. Well, except for that one episode where they completely fucked the pacing of the season in an attempt to launch a spin-off show with a bunch of characters we know absolutely fucking nothing about.
You smell that, Max? That's actually shit. Cow shit.
Then there's Season 3, and by the end it made me want to throat punch a toddler. There's a lot wrong with this season, and it's gonna sound like I hate it more than cyclists on the road and the geese outside my flat that decide it's a great idea to start honking at 4 in the fucking morning. Fucking listen to this shit, man, Jesus. Fuck me. But I don't. There is a fantastic season in there somewhere, but the writing really lets it down, as they seem to misunderstand the things that made the show so fucking good in the first place. Anyway, we've got a lot to talk about here, so let's take a look at why Stranger Things Season 3 was a mistake.
Okay, so you two want to explain to me what in the name of Jesus just happened here?
So, one of the things you might have noticed is that all the stuff to do with the Upside Down is a lot less interesting in Season 3. While the concept of this body snatcher scenario is a great way to go, they completely miss some of the most important aspects of the first 2 seasons, a sense of mystery and threat. Naturally, Season 1 did this best as it was our introduction to this world and all the fucked up shit that's been going on. Throughout those 8 episodes, we rarely knew more than the characters, and when we did, it was clearly for the sake of dramatic irony. We only really figure out what the Upside Down is around episode 5, and even then we're still finding things out right through to the last episode. Stakes are kept high, primarily with the Demogorgon taking Will and killing Barb, who could easily have been a main character. Some have said that mystery is something that Season 2 lacks, as we're already exposed to the Upside Down and how the rules of this world work. But that's
A bunch of bullshit anyways.
Yet again, in Season 2, information is actively kept from us until later on. We don't find out about the tunnels under Hawkins until the end of episode 4, we don't learn what DART is until later on in the season, and Will being a spy for the Mind Flayer leading to the attack on Hawkins' lab ensures that we're never too far ahead of the plot. Season 3, however, takes a steaming shit on this entire concept. Not only do we see Billy getting taken by the Mind Flayer at the end of episode 1, we are constantly shown what he's doing throughout the season, meaning that nothing he does can take us by surprise. They repeatedly show us where the Mind Flayer is and flat out just show us the monster early in the season. While we see bits and pieces of the Demogorgon early in Season 1, we have no idea what the fuck it is, where it comes from or what it wants. Anyway, in episode 3 we watch as Elle and Matt start to catch on to Billy and track down all of the weird shit he's been doing. And this should have been the first time we suspect anything. So imagine instead of us seeing Billy getting taken, at the end of episode 1 Karen goes to meet with Billy so she can get a good dick in.
happy screams.
But he doesn't show up. We see that there's something wrong with him in episode 2, but nothing more than that. And then, in episode 3, we see him sacrificing the lifeguard through Elle's vision. Instead of already knowing everything that's going on, we uncover his actions piece by piece throughout the episode with the characters, rather than this plotline falling flat because we're already miles ahead of the show. Imagine this scene where we're led to believe that Billy's done some bad shit, but it looks like everything's normal. Then, obviously we find out he's flayed after the sauna test, but see him getting taken at the end of episode 6 when he shows Elle where the Mind Flayer is hiding. Can you see how much better this could have been? Withholding information from the audience would have made so many scenes in this season better. I liked this one, especially with the shift to a Dutch angle that's caused by a character's actions on screen. It's kinda cool.
Do you know how I built that trust?
But we already know that this guy's flayed, so his aggressive reaction isn't surprising to us. If they hadn't shown that last bit in their house when Billy and Heather knock them out and take them to the Mind Flayer, this would have been so much more interesting. The lack of mystery also impacts the perceived threat from the Upside Down. In the first 2 seasons they were killing off main characters, even though Bob's death was predictable as shit. Now, you don't have to kill characters in order to establish a threat, but the lack of mystery, combined with a definite plot armour for the main cast, leads to the Upside Down not feeling like a proper, interesting antagonist. You get sequences like this, where Nancy and Jonathan take enough damage to kill fucking Rasputin, but walk away essentially unharmed. So, if the supernatural antagonists aren't that great, we always have the human aspect, right?
Is that so?
Yet again, Season 1 did the best at establishing a human threat. While Brenner isn't particularly well characterised, especially in comparison to the main cast, the show does a good job at making us hate him. His interactions with Eleven in the flashbacks, especially when she kills for the first time, establishes him as this creepy psychopath.
Incredible.
The show takes him and his organisation seriously, with them doing some pretty dark shit. He's basically an American Dr. Mengele, with the kids referring to him as a family member and everything.
Yes, it's your papa.
In Season 3, we move away from shady government organisations to the Russians. Again, in concept, this is a fantastic idea. Having Soviets on American soil during a peak in tensions of the Cold War? Fuck yeah! As they say in the show, it's a
Red Dawn.
They couldn't really have done more with Hawkins' lab without it becoming repetitive, so moving to a foreign threat was a great idea. But they completely fucked it. Oh yeah, you know the Soviets, the authoritarian regime well known for dogshit human rights, gulags and being a generally shit place to live? Yeah, well, we're gonna take these hard motherfuckers and make them seem like they've been taken straight off the set of Austin Powers.
Where were you two going?
Instead of taking them seriously, like in Season 1 and 2, let's make them incredibly fucking inept and laugh like Dr. Evil.
I like this guy. You smell that, Max? That's actually shit.
So you have this underground Soviet base, right? They set this thing up so they can open another gate to the Upside Down, and for some reason felt the need to set up like a 2-mile long tunnel to connect the lift to the base. What if there's a fire? What if the Demogorgon gets out and just starts eviscerating your men? Also, where are the cameras? 3 teenagers and the world's most obnoxious child are able to get all the way to the machine with them being none the wiser. What fucking cretin would set up a secret base in a hostile nation and have no interior security whatsoever? And that's forgetting that facilities like this would have cameras to keep an eye on the staff to ensure that none of them are leaking or stealing information. Even Hawkins' lab had cameras rammed into every fucking orifice, which is why Hopper was caught both times he tried to sneak in, so why are they not here? I know it's because they need some way for the kids to get into the base, but surely there's a better way of doing it. Nothing takes me out of it more than when things have to make zero fucking sense for the plot to work correctly.
Cow shit.
Do you want to know something that always aggravates me every time I see it? Pointless flashbacks. This might be something that you haven't ever noticed before, but by the time we talk about it, you're going to start seeing it fucking everywhere. As with every cinematic tool, flashbacks can be used to great effect when used correctly, but can completely take me out of the film or show if they're done wrong. A good flashback will supply us with new information or give an opportunity for character development. A bad one just makes it seem like the show thinks the audience is fucking stupid.
I'm old, honey, not senile.
So in Season 1 they used them really well. We see Eleven's experiences at Hawkins' lab as the show progresses, both informing us of the shit that was going on there, but also to give the audience the opportunity to empathise with her. In Episode 8 we see what happened to Hopper's daughter as he's moving through the Upside Down. We see that this isn't just a journey for them to save Will, but his own personal journey to start to move on from the traumatic event that he was still reeling from at the start of the show. The best example of a bad flashback is also from Season 1? Oh fuck! So, at the start of episode 6, Nancy and Jonathan have an encounter with the Demogorgon. After the title sequence, we see Nancy in the shower clearly upset, and instead of allowing Natalia Dyer to actually show us how her character is feeling, they feel the need to show footage we had seen literally 5 minutes earlier, as if we don't already understand why she might be upset. We know why she's upset. She almost had her guts ripped out by the world's most uncomfortable fleshlight. We don't need to see it again. Season 3 tops this by miles by including around 2 of these shit flashbacks in every single fucking episode. In episode 3, for example, Will's upset because the rest of the party are paying way more attention to the girls and ignoring his efforts to maintain their friendship. This is the perfect opportunity for, honestly, one of the best actors in the show to really show us how much this shit means to Will. They show us all of the pictures that he has of them, but they felt the need to cut to footage from the last 2 seasons. Panning across the pictures and then lingering on his reaction would have been so much more impactful than flashing back to this stuff. We can make the links back to the previous seasons using the pictures rather than actively seeing it. Because you see, I'm like 11 because I have a great superpower. The power to remember things! So let's break away from this tirade of hate for a bit and just talk about something I like, shall we? So, I was always looking forward to getting back to Steve, Robin and Dustin because, as with Season 2, the character interactions hold up everything else. While their ability to infiltrate a Soviet compound is on par with Solid fucking Snake, their scenes were always my favourites.
How many children are you friends with?
You know how there's this fucking asinine trend at the moment of subverting expectations? You know, the trend that made The Last Jedi and Season 8 of Game of Thrones complete and utter dogshit? Steve and Robin's storyline is how to do this stuff right. Throughout the season, the show is repeatedly implying that there may be something going on between them. We're then led to believe that Robin likes Steve, and this is going to be yet another romance plot in the show.
I sat behind you 2 days a week for a year.
This culminates in the best scene of the season. We can see that Robin's reaction isn't exactly what we were expecting, and then...
It isn't because I had a crush on you. It's because she wouldn't stop staring at you.
Tammy Thompson's a girl.
Steve.
Oh, hell yeah, brother, yeet yeet.
Holy shit. Tammy Thompson, you know, she's cute and all, but... I mean, she's a total dud.
You see, unlike the bad examples of Game of Thrones and Star Wars, their story was written from the start to end like this, and it ties into the characters' arcs for the season. Instead of being yet another romance plot, it becomes a commentary on our expectation of shows to include love stories like this, and the fact that oftentimes it ruins the experience when we can see these things coming from miles away. Steve's reaction is essentially an extension of the audience's of, oh shit, I didn't see that coming, why the fuck did I not consider this a possibility? And, well, we didn't consider it because it was written to mirror other similar storylines and we expected it to end in the same way. This also does a great job to avoid attributing Robin as the gay character. While I'm not exactly a big fan of the screaming social justice nuts, I'm also not an incel on 4chan complaining about the gays invading our media. I like it when characters have, well, character, instead of their sexuality being their personality. We've spent the entire season getting to know Robin and learning to like her. The show had already established her personality rather than revealing that she's a lesbian right off the bat. From this, we are able to process this as being a part of her character and not her defining attribute. This scene also acts as the end of Steve's arc for the season. We see throughout that while he's working a shit dead-end job, he's still in the mentality of a high schooler, with him flirting with attractive girls and getting fucking rinsed.
046, Popeye.
Yeah, I can count.
You know that means you suck.
Yep.
And still implying that popularity is somehow an important thing in the real world. In his friendship with Robin, he learns that this is, well,
Bullshit.
we can see from her reaction to him confessing feelings for her that this will be a difficult conversation, and considering what the 1980s were like for anyone who wasn't hetero, we can understand why. In Steve reacting as he did, he's clearly maturing and accepting Robin for who she is, valuing her friendship over some short-lived interest he had in her. As you can see, there's still some good writing in this show, and it pisses me the fuck off that it's brought down by so much stupid shit. Along with Eleven, Hopper and Joyce are two of the main emotional focal points in the first two seasons. The first thing we see of Hopper is that he's essentially a depressed alcoholic who turns up late to his job and doesn't really take a lot of it seriously. Naturally, with Will's disappearance in Season 1 and his increasingly sinister connection to the Upside Down in Season 2, Joyce goes through a lot of traumatic and heartbreaking shit throughout the series. So let's start with Joyce. I always found Winona Ryder's performance in the first two seasons to be incredibly compelling. In combination with the great writing, it really felt like she was a mother who thought that she had lost her son.
I don't know where my boy is. He's gone. I don't know if I'm gonna ever see him again, if he's hurt.
In Season 1, she experiences shit that could very easily be attributed to psychosis, but her stubborn belief that Will was still alive was essentially the reason why they were able to finally bring him home. Then, throughout Season 2, she watches as Will slowly gets taken over by the Mind Flayer, but she endures, and by the end of the season, fucking burns it out of him. Joyce is a hard motherfucker. But then Season 3 comes along and she just becomes really fucking goofy, which is a trend we'll cover more in a minute. I originally didn't particularly like Joyce's motivations in this season because it seemed like her only thing was some autistic obsession with her fucking magnets not working.
Ask him what he's doing that's making my magnets fall off my damn fridge!
While her underlying motivation is that this phenomenon could be caused by a big machine run by Hawkins' lab, she constantly brings up the magnets. Apart from a few select scenes, she acts this way for a lot of the season, and it seems to be a strange attempt to turn her into comic relief rather than maintaining a consistent tone with her character. Like in this scene where she gets angry and you get the fucking dum-dum-de-dum music in the background.
He's gotta get to Hawkins and he's gotta bring his men right now! Do you understand me?
Yes, ma'am.
Fucking pussy.
I remember when they took her character seriously, and honestly I think this is likely caused by her reduced role in the plot compared to previous seasons. Then there's Hopper. Hopper is without a doubt my favourite character in the entire show. When I first sat down to watch Stranger Things a few years ago, I wasn't exactly going through a great time in my life myself. I too had a bit of a drinking problem and didn't know how to talk to people about how I felt, so I identified with Hopper's struggles. I was like, oh my god, he's literally me. We watch as he goes from rock bottom to processing and moving on from the death of his daughter, primarily due to his newfound parental role for Eleven. In Season 2, he is still clearly unable to have these difficult conversations with people, again primarily shown by the tension between him and Elle throughout the season. But his arc completes with this rather touching scene in the last episode.
I should have been there. I should never have lied to you about your mom. Or about when you could leave.
In Season 3, it seems like the writing staff had a collective stroke and completely ignored this progression in his character. Despite having looked after Eleven for almost 2 years now, he still seems to find it hard to have those difficult conversations. This is highlighted in the first episode when he doesn't even understand what a heart-to-heart is, despite the show demonstrating the exact opposite at the end of the last season. Considering Hopper was able to talk to Eleven as an equal like a year prior, you'd have thought that this is something he would have gotten better at doing between seasons, not fucking worse. He has a great conversation with Joyce in episode 3, which also shows that he has the capacity to do this, but no, that clearly defined character progression in the last season doesn't mean shit. As with Joyce, the other problem with Hopper in Season 3 is that he just gets so fucking weird.
Is everything okay?
I don't think so. It's your grandma.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand parenthood does some weird shit to people, and I get that he was acting strange for what is a very real reason. He didn't like that Elle was growing up. But they didn't need to make him act like this goofy asshole in order to convey this. Like this scene with Mike in episode 1 with the fucking dum-de-dum-de-dum music in the background again.
Oh, you lying piece of shit! You're crazy!
Crazy? You want to see real crazy?
Yeah, it's funny, but that isn't the character you wrote for the last 2 fucking seasons. Yeah, he had his moments of comedy.
How you feeling? Never better.
But that was a very small part of his character. And then you get to Hopper's interactions with Joyce. They seem to make up for Joyce bailing on him after he gets attacked by this slab of meat, but then the second they get away from him with Alexei, they start fucking bickering again, which is something we've never really seen them do in previous seasons. It culminates in this scene where he starts getting really fucking irate because their Russian prisoner doesn't like his beverage. Then he risks being able to stop this plot to reopen the gate to the Upside Down just to prove a fucking point. I'm willing to assume that he hasn't met many Russians, and this presumption that Alexei isn't going to fuck off the second he has the chance is complete and utter dog shit. Alexei could have came to this conclusion like halfway back to Hawkins, or decided to ditch both groups and hide out somewhere else. So much for wanting to keep Hawkins safe that he potentially sacrifices the only way to stop it so he can get some fucking man points. Dickhead! So then we get to the last problem with Hopper in this season, and that's his apparent death.
We all die, my strange little child friend. It's just a matter of how and when.
We know from the season 4 trailer that he's still alive and in Russia, but we also got this teaser at the end of the last episode. So logically, this makes no fucking sense. Considering how close to the machine he is and that these commie fuckers get turned into corned beef despite being much further from it, how the fuck did he survive? There's no way he could have ran that far in such a short period of time, and jumping into the Upside Down through the gate would also have been a death sentence, so I don't even know. Thing is that despite him being my favourite character in the show, having him actually die here would have worked much better. I loved his monologue at the end because it felt like the same guy from the previous seasons. It's a brilliant, well-written piece to close on and genuinely welled me the fuck up, but it loses so much of its impact in the knowledge that he's just going to come back at the start of the next season. Hopefully they can somehow redeem it with season 4, but they tried to have their cake and eat it here, and they should have just grew some fucking balls. Now, this is the last main point I want to make in this video, and I'd like to think I've held your attention, and you may even agree with me on some of the stuff I've said, but you probably won't agree with this one. I hate this fucking scene! Now, it's not what happens in it. I think it's a cute, funny scene. Having Dustin and Susie doing an embarrassing musical number while the rest of the cast is listening is absolutely fine. The problem is where they decided to put it and how it affects the finale, especially in terms of pacing and threat. So you know how earlier we were talking about how the Upside Down doesn't feel like much of a threat? Well, they actually start to establish this after Elle gets bitten, because she's really the only thing that's a danger to the Mind Flayer, and now she doesn't have her powers. It's way too late to establish this threat in the last 2 episodes of the season, but it's at least something. So the Mind Flayer attacks the kids, and the tension is building as Hopper and Joyce are trying to shut down the machine. But as Murray rather conveniently doesn't remember Planck's constant, a plot point that exists entirely so we can get this scene, by the way.
How could it be wrong?
We get 2 minutes of singing, completely decimating the tension that was building up. They are clearly not in much of a rush if they can sit and listen to a fucking X Factor audition. They just sit and listen to it with no consequences whatsoever, making the Mind Flayer
Stupid bitch!
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the quickfire round. Basically, I made a whole load of notes about Season 3 and the show in general, but I couldn't find anywhere appropriate to put them in the main body of this video, some of them positive, some of them negative. So I'm going to blast through this shit as quickly as possible, all in one take. Here we go. The plotline with the kids growing up and Will feeling like he's losing his friends is one of the more compelling parts of this season. It's a real reflection of how growing up affects people differently and how relationships often decay as our situations and personalities change with age. But instead of giving it a satisfying conclusion, they just kind of brush past it after episode 4 so they can go back to fighting monsters and not resolve shit. Why the fuck are all these people protesting Starcourt now? Fam, the place is already open for business, you're like 6 months too late. Other people have already covered this, but Erica is a pain in the arse for most of the season. Of course they have to make the only black character in the show the fucking sassy one, but this side character who was great in small doses really starts to grate by the end. Remember how in season 1 where they justified why these kids were able to do all this shit without their parents getting worried? Like how Mike fakes illnesses or being cut up about Will's quote-unquote death in order to make time? Yeah, well, why the fuck are their parents not worried they haven't been home in like 3 days? Why the fuck did Billy take the lifeguard's bag back to his house and not even clean the blood off his hands? Did he take her back home instead of straight to the Mind Flayer? That seems pretty fucking stupid to me. Ah, wait, it's a plot convenience so the girls can find it and piece it all together. I love how this is meant to be like this top secret base on hostile soil, and they have these armed guards who go full operator after like one sound and then shout in Russian. Here's another pet peeve of mine. When someone's getting held at gunpoint and they touch the gun to the back of their head. All the guy has to do is move like 5 inches and you miss. Take a few steps back and it doesn't matter how fast he moves, you're gonna hit him first. I love how the camera angles here are very specific and it looks like they're hiding but they're clearly in full view. Like, this man's blind. He has to be. There's no way. They're in the fucking open. This shot is so fucking cheesy, man. Fucking... How the fuck was this shit all covered up? Not only does a fucking kaiju destroy the mall, which granted was blamed on a fire, but what about the Mind Flayer turning an entire floor of a hospital into a fucking morgue? I also have no idea how no one realised this. It's not like hospitals are manned 24/7 and are almost constantly busy.
Cow shit.
Will's ability to detect the Mind Flayer is both underused and really inconsistent. In the hospital, he doesn't notice anything despite all the monster party going on upstairs. All that was needed to happen was a quick mention that he can feel that the Mind Flayer is there, which wouldn't have spoiled Nancy and Jonathan getting attacked because the old woman was already flayed. The characters also never ask him if he can feel something or anything like that. The kid's a fucking radar dish for monsters, guys. You might want to utilise it. Watch this bit, right? The Mind Flayer is like 50 metres away, sees them and fucking roars at them. But they still have enough time to rummage around the shed, grab guns and also barricade themselves inside the cabin. It's very polite of it to wait. Also, you've just watched this thing rip trees out of the ground and you thought that the best idea was to barricading yourself into a log fucking cabin. Fam, you have cars, just drive away. This is clearly not the time to stand your ground. You were essentially already told by Billy that the Mind Flayer already knows where you are, so you should be fucking long gone. Good thing that it forgot that it's ridiculously strong and decides to attack in a way that they can actually fight it off. It's also strange how 4 teenagers can overpower it when it can rip trees out of the fucking ground. I love how Hopper opens fire on these 4 Russians in a sealed hallway, and yet this guy further down doesn't hear the shots. Gunfire travels miles in the open, it would be really damn loud in this tunnel. So, to end on a positive note, I love the Stranger Things soundtrack. Not the real life songs that they use, but the music that Carl Dixon and Michael Stein composed for the series. This shit is right in my soundtrack playlist, right next to 2 of the best TV shows ever made. As I said at the start of this video, it sounds like I fucking despise Season 3, but I don't. While I've been getting angry and sweary, it's not as a direct attack on the people who make the show, it's just an expression of disappointment that it's gone so far downhill. It's because I genuinely care about these characters and this world, even though I wish that I don't. It's just so disappointing that the best aspect of Stranger Things, the writing, has slowly become its biggest weakness. But despite all the problems, I'm still going to watch and hopefully enjoy Season 4 with the wish that they'll do better this time. And that's the problem with being a fan of something, isn't it? While I don't get involved with fan bases or anything like that, I would consider myself to be a fan of this show. Yet, despite the disappointment this season has been, I'm still going to be tuning into next season like an abusive relationship I keep returning to. In writing this review, it was hard to determine whether the problems I have with it are legitimate grievances or just me being a bitchy little fanboy not getting his own way. I mean, I'm not a writer. I find it difficult to write a somewhat engaging YouTube video, especially when it's criticising something I care about. But hopefully everything I've said here seems reasonable to you. I'm concerned because fan bases are susceptible to being irrationally positive or negative about the things they care about. Caring about something can easily blind you to its issues or make you overly critical. It's like if your kid starts a fight at school or gets caught bullying. You can either toss him an Xbox controller and ignore what he's done, or drag him into the kitchen, whip off your belt and beat the little shit.
I'll be chasing dreams till the end of time. Those dangerous ways, they slowed me down, that's for sure.